After 14 months of late nights, endless challenges, and countless curse words, it's finally alive. This is a homemade laptop, built entirely with desktop gaming hardware. It's designed to look and function like a real laptop you'd find in a store. It's fast, one of a kind, and built at home by an idiot. And I'm still amazed that it all came together and actually works. I love laptops, but they are kind of a scam. Look at these benchmarks for the RTX 4090 GPU. Now look at the benchmarks for the exact same GPU in a laptop. Look at this, it's nuts. Nearly half the frames per second from what is supposed to be the same card. They shouldn't even be allowed to use the same name. Well, I'm fed up and I'm out to fix that. So over the course of more than a year, I built a custom laptop entirely from scratch using only desktop gaming PC hardware. I did this partially because it had never been done before and partially because I hate myself. I got an AMD Ryzen 5 5600X, which has a thermal design power of 65 watts, making it relatively efficient. I also snagged a Gigabyte A520i mini ITX motherboard and an XFX RX 6600 GPU, which also has pretty low power requirements. After all, I am trying not to create a portable bonfire. Then I quickly hit my first snag. One of the biggest challenges was keeping everything quite thin, and all of the memory modules I could find were about as thin as a brick. It would have been easy to use a low-profile motherboard that takes laptop RAM and even runs off of DC power, but using laptop components goes against the spirit of my challenge, and these motherboards are rare enough that it would be much harder to upgrade it down the road. After searching around, I found these angled DDR4 memory slots, which would have given me plenty of clearance, but there's zero chance of me actually soldering these in place successfully. Finally, I found these VLP, or very low profile sticks of RAM that are only about 60% the height of regular RAM, which was perfect. So I ordered 32 gigs of it. I also picked up a 16-inch 120Hz QHD portable gaming monitor and a thin scissor key keyboard. These would both need some serious liposuction to make them thin enough, but that was a problem for future me. Finally, I grabbed a USB touchpad and a 300-watt Pico DC-to-DC power supply. This wasn't going to be enough power long term, but it should be enough for testing, and by testing I mean seeing how close we can get to starting an electrical fire. With the essentials in hand, I figured it was a good idea to throw everything together and install Windows for a bit of testing, since I was about to massively violate the warranty of nearly every single component. The only real issue was with the power brick I was using, which was getting hotter than my mixtape. After swapping it for a much beefier DC power supply, it all seemed to be fine, so it was time for the real insanity to begin. Eyeing up my build, it was clear that I had a lot of work ahead of me to somehow shrink all of this down to fit inside the profile of a normal laptop. But I decided to pretend like I didn't notice any of that and just tackle it one part at a time, starting with the motherboard. After stripping it down, I removed the Wi-Fi card, followed by the VRAM heatsink. That just left us with 3 sets of ports that were too tall to fit: audio jacks, Ethernet, and some USB ports. Thankfully, we can find ways to use all of these things without the rear ports, so it was time to remove them. The right way to do things would be to desolder them, making for a clean removal. Sadly, my soldering iron simply wasn't up to the job, so now the right way to do things would be to buy a decent soldering gun, but local stores didn't have them in stock and I'm not a patient person. So we're gonna do things very much not the right way. For this method, we just need our poverty pry bar, the Vasectomizer 5000, and a set of lobster fingers. I'm 74% sure the warranty is void at this point, but after a while, we have a crime scene of parts and a motherboard that is looking much more lean. Now, I have to admit, I had no actual idea if you can just rip ports off of a motherboard and have it still function. It seemed like it would just appear to the motherboard as if nothing was plugged in, but I really didn't know, so I decided to hook everything back up and see if it would still boot. Come on. Come on. Okay, so I guess you can't just rip everything off of a motherboard and expect it to work. Alright, I guess I'll get another motherboard and maybe try desoldering and see if that works. Oh, wait. What? Dude! I obviously wouldn't do this if I didn't know it would work. That would be dumb. I was never worried. I did a quick check to make sure everything was still recognized, that network and sound all showed up in Device Manager, and everything seemed to be business as usual. So taking that as my thumbs up to continue, I moved on with the video card. Now, this guy obviously sticks up a lot when plugged into the motherboard, but with a PCIe adapter, I can place it on its side. However, if you compare the size of the GPU with a laptop, we still have a problem. But the actual card itself isn't that thick. We're mostly looking at heatsink and plastic, so I started to tear it down. And with everything gone, you can see that he really is just a little guy. This will work just fine, as long as we don't need to cool it, but that's another problem for future me. I'd really hate to be that guy. Around this time, I really wanted to start figuring out how to lay out the components, so I started designing the case. Looking at other laptops for inspiration, I noticed a trick that all of them use. Looking at a laptop like this from the side, it looks pretty thin, but that's really just smoke and mirrors. The narrow sides taper very quickly, so the actual bulk of the laptop is about twice as thick as the side profile suggests. I decided to use this trick to design the base, and after a lot of measurements and time in CAD, I had a design that I thought would work pretty well. It was far too big for my 3D printer, so I printed it in 4 different sections and carefully heat welded them together with a soldering iron. Now, this looked like it would work, and laying out all of the parts, it was starting to feel like this could actually come together. But if you've ever 3D printed something before, you might already be aware of a huge issue with this, and that is that 3D printed parts do not mix well with heat, and gaming PCs tend to produce quite a bit of heat. To solve this, I fell back on a trick. I applied a thin layer of JB Weld to the part almost like paint. In the past, this has allowed parts that I've printed to withstand high temperatures for years without melting. So I gave the laptop base a solid coat. It needs some paint, but this should be fine structurally. So now let's go over the plan for cooling.
So here's the plan. I don't have one. Great.
I went in not expecting much from this since there are several issues with this setup, which I'll get to in a moment. But after a lot of mockups in Photoshop, I decided on a layout. Then the trusty Amazon deliverer brought me some goodies. To attach everything to the CPU and GPU, I got some copper shims thinner than my chances of this working, along with a mess of heat sinks short enough to actually fit in the case and a set of heat pipes. Laptops make pretty extensive use of heat pipes to carry heat away from the chips to the heat sinks where the fans can then remove the heat from the case. And heat pipes are pretty much magic. They are a vacuum-sealed tube containing a liquid that heats up, turns into a vapor, transports heat to the other end, turns back into a liquid, and travels back to the hot end through a copper wick using capillary action, and it does all of this extremely fast. But these heat pipes are never going to line up as they are, and you're supposed to use special tools and processes to bend them into shape. But as you can see here, one of the heat pipes arrived looking like it had lost a bar fight, and I figured that would be a good test of how much function is lost by a pretty serious bend. Testing it out by dipping it in hot water, I was surprised I couldn't tell a difference between how it performed compared to the other ones. So since I was pretty sure this whole setup wasn't going to work anyway, I decided to just fail quickly and move on to the next idea. Using a metal flashlight, I got to work curving the heat pipes into the shapes I needed. It seemed worth trying. So I started to make 2 heatsink units, one for the CPU and one for the video card. I sanded everything as flat as I could, and using thermal paste, pressed the heat pipes onto the copper plates that will attach to the chips. With a small dab of glue holding them in place, I mixed some JB Weld with a bit of thermal paste to help move heat around better. Then I clamped everything in place with a lot of pressure to ensure the parts were smushed together as closely as possible to help with heat transfer. At the other end, I aligned the heatsinks with the heat pipes the best I could, even though the placement wasn't completely ideal. And 24 hours later, we have these abominations. Doing some test fitting, it all seems to line up. I put together a temporary setup for testing. Silicone sheets are taped together to keep heat away from the keyboard, fishing line through the board for mounting, and some popsicle sticks which bend nicely to provide a lot of pressure. This might be the jankiest part of the whole project, but there are a lot of other things to worry about, so we'll fix that when we need to. Probably. So I threw the original fans on them and booted it up for some stress testing. It actually seemed to be stable and temps were a bit high but not unreasonable. However, this was only the case when blasting them with the stock fans, which were not going to fit. I wanted to use these slim blower fans, but they just don't move enough air to keep things cool under load. I had trouble finding larger fans that would fit, so I decided to make my own. This design would use the stock AMD fan motor with long, thin blades to pull air in from the center intake and force it out through the opening. After putting it together and doing some test runs, it seemed to move a ton of air. I attached it to the CPU heatsinks using aluminum tape to duct the air all the way through where it can exit the case on the other end. I also modified one of the GPU fans to blow directly onto the video card. I tried making another blower fan, but it really seemed to perform best with this one, so I decided to stick with what worked. Now, to make sure everything would have enough clearance to fit, I wanted to move on to making the keyboard tray. First, I needed to get the scissor key keyboard out of its housing, which took a bit of brute force. I lost a few keys, but those can be popped back on later. Laying everything out, it seemed like it would fit, and I lined everything up so there would be room for the USB cables to plug in. With some measurements in hand, I made a simple keyboard tray in CAD. After printing it out and fusing it together, I did some trimming on the original top panel from the keyboard case so I could reuse it. After securing it with some JB Weld, I filled everything in with a filler compound and sanded it down until I had a nice smooth surface. This seemed to work, and after some paint, I was pretty amazed at how nice it looked. I just needed one more thing, a power button. I went with a kind of unique shape, and after some finishing, I hit it with a metallic copper paint, which I thought would look nice next to the flat black case. And I was so happy with how it turned out that I decided to also add some copper accents to the sides of the panel. The keyboard and touchpad were pretty easy to mount using some JB Weld, and I didn't mind how its gray color looked as a sort of touchpad bezel, so I decided to leave it. From here, I decided to move on with the LCD screen. This is a nice 16-inch QHD portable monitor with a 120Hz refresh rate, but it was way too thick to use it as is. After breaking it open, I was relieved to see that the actual LCD panel was extremely thin, and the control boards already had cables long enough that I could just put them in the bottom part of the case. It even came with tiny speakers that I could reuse for audio. Now, to hold the unwrapped LCD panel, I needed a lid. I've never found a term that I quite like for this part of the laptop, but I designed it in CAD and printed it in several parts to heat weld together like I did with the base, and reinforced with JB Weld plaster to withstand opening and closing and to hold up to higher temperatures if needed. I also made a front bezel to go around the screen and some hinges to mount everything to the bottom case. After some off-brand Bondo and sanding, it was time for some paint. But I didn't want the back of the lid to look boring. I figured this is a custom build and I pretty much have a blank canvas to work with. So I mocked up a design going with a copper and gold theme with a blue accent stripe. And since most laptops have a logo in the center, I thought mine looked weird without one. I decided to put an S from the channel logo here. I avoided going with two S's since it kind of reminded me of something else. I originally wanted a smooth copper finish, but I didn't let the body filler dry enough prior to painting, which reacted with the spray paint and cracked like crazy. But I decided to leave it because I really like the way the finish turned out. It reminds me of raw copper ore, and I thought it looked really cool. After definitely not getting sidetracked while using my airbrush gun, I had the blue accent line in place. I printed out the S from the channel logo, painted it, and glued it on the back, and I thought it looked pretty nice. Flipping the lid around, it was time to mount the LCD. This was held in place with a few globs of epoxy putty, and then I pressed the bezel in place to complete the assembly. Then I cut some pads out of silicone to act as bumpers so the LCD doesn't just slam into the keyboard tray whenever it's closed. I designed some simple hinges, which use screws to clamp down really hard on some silicone pads so I can open and close the screen without having it slam into stuff. Next, I needed a back panel to cover this nightmare of wires after I shove everything in. After printing it, I used a really thick clear paint to get a brush texture, painted it in copper, and added a carbon fiber wrap to finish it off. It just barely managed to contain everything, and I think it looks pretty good with the rest of the laptop. Finally, I wanted to make my own power connector. The external power supply was pushing out a whole bunch of amps, and I really didn't like the connector that came with the power supply. It felt extremely hot to the touch, so I made my own connector, which uses these pretty strong butt connectors to pass current through multiple wires. These two both carry 12 volt positive, these two handle 12 volt negative, and this one is a ground connection. This was designed to plug into this cutout in the side of the case, and I felt a lot safer using this more robust plug. I also ordered some battery control boards and a bunch of lithium cells, but I kind of lost interest. I don't know about you, but I've never seen much point not plugging in a gaming laptop, and the battery usually only lasts maybe 30 minutes tops anyway. I'd kind of rather leave some room in the case for better airflow, but maybe I'll come back to this in the future. Even though I'm kind of tired of looking at it after 14 months of work, I'm pretty proud of how it turned out. It's far from perfect, but I think it went alright.